Welcome to the Power Forward Pod, hosted by the Power Forward Group Financial Advisory Team, where we believe 2 is better than 1, dialogues are better than monologues, thoughts were meant to be challenged, sound boxes are the enemy, and change is the only constant. If you want to learn more about our day jobs and what we really do, check out our website at powerforwardgroup.com. Let's talk about sound boxes today. We're going to focus on a lot of the Power Forward Group method, which involves 2 advisors working with every client of ours, whether it's a couple, whether it's a solo person. We want to make sure we have 2 Power Forward Group advisors on every call we're on. And the real reason for that is we believe conversations and collaborative discussions, kind of like what we're going to try to have today, although we have too many of us here, all 4 of us, results in a better end product. And the idea behind that is we live in a world full of sound boxes, echo chambers, and that leads to a lot of one-dimensional groupthink. So how do we get beyond that is really challenging the ethos behind that. And it's about sitting around a round table like this and having a conversation about what sound boxes mean, about what our journeys look like, and about what brought us here as a group. So I want to kind of go through all of our stories and where we came from and how we got here to where we're sitting today, discussing sound boxes so openly. Personally, I think this is just one big matrix and we're all part of it. And even as we discuss sound boxes, we're still deciding between what are the pills, Chris?
Red and blue.
Red and blue.
Which is the right pill?
The red one.
Anybody watch the movies? We just talk about it.
Long time.
It's been a while.
More of a John Wick guy.
Yeah. Joe, I feel like you haven't
Joe,
seen
you
it.
never saw
I don't think I saw any movies.
Oh, man.
You've never seen a movie?
I've just none that any of you guys know.
Nothing before the year 2020?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So in terms of matrices and kind of where we came from in sound boxes that we come from, I think our backgrounds are really built by the environment we grow up in, the environment that's around us. And to get better at what we do and to have differences of opinions and differences of thought and perspectives, a lot of that is really just challenging our environments. So thinking about that, I'd love to hear, Chris, you've been here for quite a while. I'd love to hear kind of, when you think about your journey and where you came from, are there any sound boxes that got you here or kept you back?
I mean, I think they kind of fall in the same with held me back and got me here at the same time. Growing up, money was not something that was talked about. It was definitely stressed a little bit about. My dad was a mailman. My mom was an artist, and we definitely never had a lot of money. But I would always remember my dad kind of doing like side jobs, try to earn a little bit more. But it seemed like within my family and just even my friends that I grew up around, because kind of grew up around the same situation you're in, typically is always like, go get a good job. If you got a pension, you hit the jackpot, and that was really it. And I kind of struggled with that a little bit because I was doing it, it's going kind of coasting through school and stuff like that. But I don't know, in the back of my head, that just never seemed right for me. Took me a little while to get there, though, in terms of that. My first job coming out of school, I never actually had a job, I don't think, where I had an interview where there wasn't a shot of me getting the job. It was more of going to places where they're hiring everybody and anybody to get there.
So it wasn't your skill set? It was just your easy hire?
I like to think it was my skill set.
Okay, just checking.
But yeah, no, I mean, in college, I was in an engineering background, started in college there, and that was kind of the goal, was come out, be an engineer, go get a good paying job, and that was it. And quite frankly, I hated it. Didn't do well in the engineering program. Was actually a pro gamer at the time, which Joe always says is the coolest part about me, which makes me feel not cool since I don't do that anymore, I guess. But was making more money doing that than I think guys that even today that I graduated with are making now. Not that it was about specifically that, but when I kind of switched over into like finance in school, it just seemed like there was no ceiling, and it always seemed like the goal was just, you'd see people that had some money, and this is the way my family always looked at it, was they're lucky they have that, instead of how do you get that, how do you achieve that sort of thing. And I really didn't find that. I kind of fell into it a little bit post college. I didn't get a job right away. I was waiting tables at a restaurant, bartending, where I actually met my wife, which is pretty cool. But my first job was as a stockbroker, which hire everybody and anybody there, and that was my first exposure to like guys that came from really nothing that were just killing it. Like guys that were 25 years old driving around in $100,000 cars and stuff like that. Almost didn't seem real. I was like, oh, this is maybe this isn't the exact place I want to be. This is what I want to kind of be doing. that happened to be the same year that Wolf of Wall Street came out. So that was a hard conversation. My wife was like, "We're not doing that. I promise." that's not what we're doing in the office. We're just selling stocks. But yeah, I was doing that for a little while, and then wanted to do more something that felt a little bit more long term, which kind of brought me into the financial planning sphere, where I eventually met up with you, Ruben. But part of, I think, what I've kind of translated into with clients is that, like, the more you kind of talk about money, the more you think about money in terms of the way that you're saving, the way you're approaching your money, the more freedom you're going to ultimately have. Like, doesn't mean you have to be a business owner, right, at the end of the day, which, for me, that was a thing because I didn't want to feel capped in kind of what we're doing. But if you feel like you have control over, and that's probably why, those days, like, my dad coming home and stressed out and stuff like that, like, didn't feel like he had control over his life probably a lot of times because money was a big stressor at the end of the day. I still have friends, though, they're working good jobs, good union jobs and stuff like that. But for me, that was kind of like the sound box that, their success was not my vision of success. And took a little bit while for me to get out of that, not until like my mid-20s.
So the make-believe of video games had a hard ceiling on it?
No, I had bad timing on that one. Yeah.
How much does a gamer make today?
You really want to know?
I do.
So one of the guys that I used to compete against, that we were kind of rivals, last year, I think Forbes had it that he netted about $15 million.
Shit, I went in the wrong business.
What kind of games are we playing?
I was playing, the big games were shooters. I was good at Halo, but I was too young when Halo was like kind of on the horizon, right, to go to tournaments and stuff. That was the difference. Like, where I missed out was, like, when we were playing, it was you went to tournaments and you won money. I quit probably a little too soon because, like, 2 years after that,
that's when it blew up, right?
The streaming thing blew up, right? So, like, when we were competing, like, you really didn't, like, they would stream our tournaments, which was cool. So, like, people at home could, like, watch, like, I was in Dallas or Vegas, like, playing, they could watch it. But, like, you didn't want guys seeing how you're playing. It's like, it's like Jordan work at practice. Like, he doesn't want that video getting out, right? Yeah. Seeing how guys are playing and stuff like that. But it really went from more of, like, competitive nature to, like, an influencer kind of model with the streaming and stuff like that. It's like the guys that are killing it now, maybe they might not be the best gamers, but they're the most entertaining for the most part.
Top winnings? Chris DeVito top winnings?
Like at the tournaments the game I played didn't get a lot of traction. Like the biggest pool we won, I think, was like 25 grand split 4 ways, but we would do tournaments all throughout the year. There was a lot of local tournaments and stuff like that too. The top guys, Halo got a lot more love on the circuit. They were making, like, top prize would be like 100K at the championship and maybe like 50K throughout the year, like 5, 6, 7 tournaments.
So this podcast is turning you into a financial influencer, and we're getting rid of the ceilings.
That's fine, yeah. I'm good with that.
Should we put on Twitch? Is that what we use? Twitch?
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, it used to be Justin TV. That's what it came out as.
You're going to find us on YouTube, the Power Forward Group channel, and wherever else Michaela puts our videos. And hopefully you'll download this. But Joe Shalom. Joe began with Power Forward Group the day the pandemic started. And I kind of want to hear about his background, the sound box that led him here, whether he's still in the Matrix, whether he's out of the Matrix, I'm still not sure. But Joe, can you tell us what a Balak means?
By you?
Yeah. What does that mean?
So I actually grew up in a very close-knit Jewish community. And, I went to a Jewish day school. People I hung out with were all Jews and really insulated from everywhere else in the outside world. And I think that sort of led me to where I am today and made me think about who I am as a person, because my family had a business. My grandpa started it over close to 60 years ago. Every holiday, every Saturday, Shabbat, we went to their house. And I was one of the younger cousins. And as I sat around the table, I sat around, the couch, and everyone's talking about being in the business. Everyone was, for the most part, in wholesale at the time. And I'm listening to them what they did. And they're talking about it. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm missing out. I'm not part of that at all. And my whole goal was, as I was growing up, like, I just want to be part of that crew. I want to sit there in that conversation, be part of them. So as I went through school, college, my whole goal was, hey, I'm going to turn, 18, 19, 20, 21 and go work in the family business just like everyone else is talking about. I want to be part of that conversation. And that's what I did. When I got to college, it was like, all right, I'm here just to get a degree, not really focus on, doing anything else, right? Graduated college in 2.5 years with the idea that, all right, great. Once I get out.
2.5 years.
Yeah, I got very lucky, but it's another conversation for another day. So when I got out, I said, okay, this is what I wanted to do my whole life. Since I was sitting around listening to everyone talk about it, I'm going to go work in the family business. And it's not what they talk about at the table. Working with family is not always necessarily the easiest thing in the whole world. And when you work with, an 125 person company, it's not like you just get, the keys to the kingdom at the top. You got to start at the bottom. And I was probably doing...
Hold on. Did you walk in like you expected the keys to the kingdom? Because Joe Shallum's in the room?
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
100%.
Yeah.
I admit it now, but back then I didn't think it.
When you what was the first, oh, wait, this is not what I thought it was moment?
He had to get his own coffee.
I don't drink coffee, but there was one day when one of the owners called me in and said, "Joe, I want you to count paper clips." And he gave me a stack of paper clips and said, "Just count it." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because you have to learn to do anything I say. I don't give it crap what you say. You just got to do it."
And the owner was your dad.
No, it wasn't. But so I sat there counting paper clips, and I was like, "This is horrible." But what else am I going to do? I have no choice but to listen. And then it was, come in on a Sunday because we said you have to come in on a Sunday. And it was, go count the showroom samples because we said you have to do it. And back then I thought like I was above that. But thinking back, 8, 9, 10 years later, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be anywhere who I am as a person today because you have to really start at the bottom. And I didn't understand that at the time because I thought, hey, it's family business. I could be at the top. And after working there for a number of years, I said, maybe I should go somewhere else, think about something different because as I'm growing here, I want to really expand my wings and I'm sort of limited to what I know, who I know, the people I work and interact with. And all I really knew was wholesale. And I spent about 6 months talking to different people in all different industries. And quite frankly, I didn't even know financial advisory was even a business. I didn't know anyone in it. I had no idea about it. You asked me when I was there that I would be doing this 5 years later, I'd say, I don't even know what you're talking about. Never heard of it before. And it sounded interesting when I started talking to someone in it, and I jumped in and said, hey, I liked finance. It sounded cool. Let me do it. And started working with, the Power Forward Group team first day of COVID, and thank God it's been very successful since.
And have your horizons been opened?
Oh, that's for sure, right? I can't imagine about almost all my clients are not even part of my community, right? They all have different backgrounds, different stories. Most of them don't even live in New York like I do. And just the fact that I was able to expand my horizons, I think, A, makes me a better advisor, and B, just a better person as a whole.
How did your family take it when you were like, I'm out?
They still want me back, but that's a different conversation. They were very supportive. They gave me time while I was still working there to say, hey, I want to still work here, but figure out what else I'm going to do. And they gave me that time to go explore, meet with different people, talk to them. As long as I was open and honest, they didn't care.
What was like a big like shell shock or like odd thing that you saw like outside of your community getting exposed to like other people?
When I tell people I was married at 22, like no one understands that at all.
That might be more of an East Coast thing. If you met with us, might be a little different.
Yeah. Bobby.
Yeah. How we doing?
How we doing? So
How you doing?
How you doing, Chris?
I know you love finance. You love looking at markets. You love thinking about markets. Is that kind of where you began? Is that why you came into the world of financial advisory?
No. I would say, my passion, my interest in markets, investing, the whole investment world really came a little bit later in life for myself. I think the big soundbox that I'm thinking about this and thing I had to sort of break through in a way was getting over the fact that there was almost a predetermined career path for some of the men in my family before me, and just finding my passion in life. Credit to my parents. I think they, especially my dad specifically, he did a tremendous job of just always leading me to and encouraging me to follow my passion, follow my dreams, do what makes you happy in this life and find your purpose. For my father, he had a little bit of a different story. So he owns and operates a lumber business now, which was actually started by his grandfather. So my dad's father kind of was forced into the business a little bit. My dad didn't really have a choice growing up, which I didn't know at the time. But over the years, just speaking with him, I think it was very clear that wasn't really his passion. He didn't foresee himself going into the business. He wanted to do other things. He actually wanted to be a teacher. I think I still talk to him to this day about when he retires. I think joining, becoming a professor or teacher is something he wants to do, which that must have been tough for him, just not doing what he loves. But credit to him, he's one of the hardest workers I've ever been around. did a phenomenal job of providing for his family, for his kids, and for his wife. But for me, he steered me away from the family business from a very early age. There was many summers growing up where myself, my brother, we would always, we'd work for him in the summers, all this, but there was never any pressure to step into the family business, to take over what he was doing. And he really allowed us and wanted us to he steered us away from the business a little bit. So I was very fortunate for that. And I credit to him and my mom for where I am today. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today. The whole money situation, our family, again, credit to my parents, very hardworking individuals and people, but I don't think they were ever the most financially literate of the two. Both, come from blue-collar families. The whole investment world, stock market, real estate investing, all of those things were never really taught. I don't think they were ever taught to them, which as a product was never really taught to us as children. So for me, I became very curious over time. Math was always one of my best subjects growing up. I wasn't always the greatest student overall, but math was certainly an area where I shined and, was getting A's in every class. And
Wait, what was your worst subject?
English, for sure.
Oh, me too. What'd you get?
Bobby writes wonderful emails, Joe. You still can't write a sentence.
My emails take 20 minutes to write 3 sentences. I'm always I'm always asking her, "Does this look okay?" But math was my strong suit, so I love that. And growing up, I guess it was really for freshman year of college. I took my first accounting course, money and finance course, and it was just very eye opening to me. Like I had no idea what the stock market was. I had no idea how cool this whole nother world is. So I just became very interested. I started reading, everything I could get my hands on that was related to money. Accounting was just a subject a lot of people hated, and most people think it's one of the most boring things. I think it was one of the most fascinating things. I loved it. Balancing, the balance sheets. It was just something I loved doing. So I quickly realized that was my passion. That's what I wanted to do, and that's transpired over the years. And similar to my dad a little bit, I think the educational factor plays into it. I enjoy trying to teach people things. I enjoy trying to share my knowledge with other individuals that do not have the same knowledge, right? And that's a whole other topic we can go into, how the lack of financial education in the system is where it is. But yeah.
Is your dad your hero?
He is, yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's my hero for sure.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny? My whole life, I wanted to go into the family business. Your whole life, you wanted to get out of the family business. Maybe we should have switched.
Yeah. Well, your dad wanted you in the family business, Joe, right? Is that
Not
correct?
necessarily. We didn't really talk about it. It was more of just me watching everyone else grow up and be part of it that I said, hey, maybe that's what I want to do. Because I didn't know anything else. I'm just listening to them talk about it all their whole life.
Are you the oldest sibling?
I'm the oldest. My dad's the youngest. So all my cousins and everyone was older than me.
Mm.
Like my youngest cousin and my dad's older brother, his youngest son is 11 months older than me. So like, is that age
You saw
gap?
all of that.
Yeah.
How many family members can one business support? How much wood can a woodchuck chuck?
That's part of the conversation of one of the reasons I left. It's good, but you got to keep growing, and it's not necessarily so easy all the time.
Right. So it's kind of interesting. I was looking through some studies of sound boxes and thoughts about sound boxes. And Michaela pointed me towards a Harvard Business Review article, and they were doing a study of Bell Labs. Bell Labs is kind of like the Google back in the day. AT&T was the largest company. It was the largest tech company. We don't think about AT&T and tech. And a subsection of AT&T was Bell Labs, and they would hire the best and the brightest. And throughout hiring the best and the brightest, you assume you'd get the best work product from the best and the brightest. But what the student found as they started to look at the KPIs and the key performance indicators of their employees is that a lot of them fell back to the mean. Yet there were a couple that really shone above or shined above everybody else. And social researchers started to look at this and said, hey, what was the big difference? And it wasn't necessarily IQ. Everybody was super bright. Everybody was, 1,600 on their SATs or whatever the score was at the time. What they started to find was that the best performers were the ones who had the largest social networks, but not just social networks in terms of the amount of people they know, right? Because that's not the only important factor, right? Joe, how many people are at your wedding?
between 700 and 900.
Chris, how many people were at your wedding?
175 maybe.
Right. For me, it was like 400. Bobby, how about you?
220.
Right. And I use weddings because weddings are a good sign of your basic social network. But it wasn't size alone, right? By assumption, there you'd say, "Hey, Joe, who told us a moment ago, I came from a pretty closed environment. You get 900 people at his wedding. It sounds like the most open environment. So it's not the amount of people; it's the diversity of opinions in that network that really they started to focus in on. Is those were the most diverse networks in terms of ideas, opinions, and thoughts. Were the ones who rose to the top. And I think about that in what we do because I think about the matrix and the sound box that we all come from, right? Everybody comes through their family environment, their schooling environment. That's how they end up where they are. I think that's we don't have a lot of free say in that, right? You don't have a choice on what community you grew up in, Joe. Bobby, your grandfather was in lumber, right? Just was what it was.
Right.
That was the environment. And for Chris, your family is a single family household, right? You didn't have that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And you follow, I think a lot of us follow the path of least resistance and the path that's going to make our parents the most happy at the time and our community the most happy at the time, right? You go into the business they expect. You follow that path they expect. You get the best grade you can on a test you can get. But I think the real differentiator when you think about what the Bell Lab studies thinks about is the people you surround yourself with. And I think the beautiful part about what we do, if you were to ask me what gets me out of the matrix, it has nothing to do with choices I make. It has to do with the conversations that we have every single day. We meet people from around the country, different walks of life, different thought processes. And that exposure to me is a massive piece of my own strength. I think about our job almost like being a vampire. Every meeting I have, I'm taking more. And I'm getting a new life story, a different
Sucking
opinion.
blood from them too.
I am. So we call that 1%. But I think the exposure we get by advising clients, when we think about what an advisory is, I think we get so much more back from those conversations that we have and that open environment those conversations foster. So to my first question to Joe, a BALIC, that term to me was explained by my wife as soon by you. And when we think about life's journey, it's always about the next step, the next step, the next step. But really the journey is the goal, right? It's kind of enjoying your process, enjoying that journey. And it's not about the performance indicators. It's not about, at least for me, I don't want it to be about, how much money I made yesterday, how much money I'll make tomorrow. I want it to be about the experience along the way, the experience along the path. So I think when we sit with clients and we talk about financial advisory, when we're really focused on isn't the numbers part, although Bobby and Chris will love math and Joe will tell me it's always about the numbers. But I think it's about the listening. I think it's about the challenging nature of those conversations and really the open form of those conversations. So within that, when you think about that process and that environment, how do you think the 2-to-1 ratio affects that, Bobby?
I think it's great. It opens up the sound boxes completely. I'll be on meetings with you, with Chris, with Joe. We all hear things a little different too. There are some things that Joe will pick up that maybe I missed, or maybe I picked up that you missed. So the 2-to-1 ratio is really great. And we all have different personalities. So everybody we're dealing with, everybody we're speaking with, it's great. We're learning about not only their finances, but their background, their story. Where did they come from? How did they get to where they are today? And I think the 2-to-1 ratio is a terrific thing that we have, and it's very unique in our industry.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably have to just agree with Bobby on all that stuff. It's also interesting just the different types of people that you meet. Like I've seen everything from, pilots to guys that compete in hot dog eating contests and just about everything in between, which is pretty interesting to see the different walks of life and people's different experiences. Ex-pro athletes, people that served in crazy places all over the world in the military and stuff like that, and things that I definitely was not exposed to growing up where I grew up. I mean, I think we had kind of done it before the pandemic hit, but kind of becoming more of a national firm and working with clients across the country has been pretty cool. Like getting exposure to people in Texas, California, Chicago that, I wouldn't know what the heck their life was like growing up, and hearing about those different things, and then, them getting exposed to, different stories that, two advisors that they're working with that have totally different views on life and experiences and stuff. I think it adds a lot of value. It's really the culture of how we work with clients.
Right. And for myself, I think about that. A lot of that is around goals, right? The first real question we ask a lot of prospective clients is, what are your goals? What do you want to do? It's not about, maybe some analytical people think about what net dollar amount they want at a certain point in life, but a lot of it's really about what the money's going to do for them to allow them to have those goals. So the question is, what do you want to do at retirement? When do you want retirement? What are you looking to do with your family life? What do vacations look like? Questions like that. By having those conversations, I think it expands my own goals because I hear a ton of different things. And to Joe, your point before, right? You're living in this environment where the goal at a young age is to what? To go into the family business, right? Because that's all you know. That's all you're exposed to. When you think about it now, what business are you leaving us to? Where are you going?
I like what I'm doing, right? But I think it's just to add on to what Bobby and Chris said. What I think is very interesting more than anything else is just the way we all have conversations is we always don't agree on things, right? Because of all our different backgrounds that, me and Bobby, me and Chris, me and you, even though we're, similar Jewish communities, even though it's different from that perspective, we all have different backgrounds, which allows us to have different opinions. So we could be on a meeting and the client can see one thing one way, like Bobby was saying, and we could, me, you, and then the client could have different opinions on how we think to get there, which is crazy if you think about it, right? Because every one of us could be working with the same client and give them different advice, but it's really, I think that's the benefit, right? That we can say, hey, here's what I think. Here's what you think. What do you think? And then with all three of us put together a solution that fits what actually is the real best solution for him, because it's not just, hey, I believe this, you should do this. It's really an open conversation behind it.
So that's a super interesting point, right? Because when I just turned that question to you for a minute, right, what I was saying kind of in jest is you came from a more insular environment, right? At the same time, there's a lot of strengths that come from that insular environment, right? It's not something, it might be something that kind of closed for a while your eyes to other things, but at the same point, you have a lot to offer from that environment that you come from. The individuality of the environment you come from isn't necessarily something that holds us back. It's something that we can draw upon and use strength from. And when I think about that, I think a lot about communal environments, community environments, individuality being super important. On the back of my computer says "we, them, ones." I think the idea there, though, is it's really easy to just follow the path forward. And I'll go back to, my nerdy reading stuff. But I love to read. I think about finance. When I think about finance, a lot of what I think about is anthropology and basic human characteristics in the easiest way. People look at that as they look at communities, early human communities, to see how we evolved as a culture. And we all think about Darwinism, right? What does Darwinism say? Chris, you're probably a big Darwinism
You're
guy.
the history guy. You got to tell us all this stuff. Me and Bobby didn't study history.
I went to Chris. Darwinism. Let's go.
So we're just talking about survival of the fittest here.
Survival
I
of the
dropped
fittest,
out
right?
of them.
It's a simple, survival of the fittest sounds really simple, right? It says, hey, we build up certain characteristics because it gets us further in life. But what they found when they looked deeper into a lot of these communities, that survival of the fittest wasn't necessarily, goes back to that idea of a multiplicity of concepts and social exposures. Is sure, communities advance and they grow better, and it's by watching others before you. But when they looked at historical man and historical communities, a lot of what they learned is survival of the fittest alone wasn't so simple. Survival of the fittest really came upon following those who were really good at what they did, but following communities that succeeded weren't communities that were singular, right? They weren't monolithic. They weren't, hey, just follow the king. We're democratic societies now. It's the idea of a multiplicity of ideas within that and following those. One of my favorite concepts is Federalist 10. Federalist 10 is the idea that free speech in society, the more ideas that are out there, the better we will come out as a society and take those ideas and we'll synthesize to what the best idea is for our community and our people. And humanity, I think one of the biggest dangers to that today, and we spoke about past history, is what are modern sound boxes? When you think about modern sound boxes, I think there's more and more and more of them, and those become echo chambers.
What's the other thing? Like confirmation bias is a big part of that, right? You're just kind of looking for things that you agree with to just reinforce something that you believe, even though that might not be right or correct or whatever, and you just gravitate to that.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Like Chris says, you're on Facebook, Twitter, you like what you like, and then they just keep showing you what you like, and they start showing you less of what you like. So as things keep growing naturally to more of what you like, less of what you don't like, you don't see the other side of things anymore.
Right. And I think those are a lot of the conversations we're able to have. And that's the beauty of human conversation, right? Whether it's through Zoom, whether it's around the table like this, is challenging some ideas, having different ideas come to the forefront, allowing individuality. Final question. Biggest
Jeopardy?
No. Final question. Final Jeopardy.
That idea, Joe.
Okay, Final Jeopardy. I can't do it. It's too
You have to answer in a question.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's very hard to do. But the biggest, a lot of what we do as advisors is really build up our book of clients and really try to build out our practice and meet people. What's the biggest shot you took today? Chris, we'll go around the table. Chris, what's the biggest shot you took today in terms of just trying to do something different? What's the biggest risk you took today?
Biggest risk I took today? I don't know. I didn't feel like I didn't get too risky today.
Chris comes in the office, he hangs on his computer, hides his screen. You know, he's
We
happy you're working
we
from
play some
home.
darts.
Do
so.
some darts.
My
Maybe
biggest
that was
risk.
his risk.
My biggest risk was I
Bob's
tried to change up my commute this morning, and it did not go well.
Uh-oh. Let's hear.
Well, the shuttle across town had to wait another 25 minutes because I missed it. Michaela knows all about that. So decided to walk to the 7 train, and of course that was out of commission for another 20 minutes. Then I finally got on it, went across town, then was going to jump on the local train down, 34th Street. Ended up taking the express. Ended up way too far downtown, and then just decided to walk up. So it was a little late this morning, but
Net result, how long?
I don't know, hour and 15 door to door.
Wow.
I know. Usually it's like 35 minutes. But
I did get a text from Bobby this morning that he thought he might be running 3 minutes late to his 9 o'clock. So at the end of the day,
15.
I think he starts his 9 o'clock at what time?
Riven doesn't let you know he's late till he's 5 minutes late.
That's right.
Ruben was going to be 20 minutes late. He didn't tell me anyway. I'm actually stuck in court right now. On virtual court.
Virtual court.
I got my shot. This is going to anger a lot of parents out there. This morning I woke up a sleeping baby.
Oh,
because I had to catch a
not
train.
allowed. That's not okay.
Well, it's
golden rule number 1. Never wake.
Ruben said we have to be in the office today, so you know.
Oh, so it's like stealing like a lollipop from a child. I made you wake your child.
Yeah. Sorry, he was good.
I walked my son to school today. Got on the train at 9:15. Bob was in the office at 9:03, and I was getting to the train. Got into the office at 10:30. It's okay.
Was that your biggest shot today?
No. I changed up my game for ping ponging with Bobby.
How'd you do?
Not too great.
I was 3-1 on the day, so we'll leave it at that.
The day's still young.
Yeah, fair. I think that all made sense. My biggest shot of the day is probably leaving the house 20 minutes late, knowing I was leaving the house 20 minutes late. I'll go with Bobby's, but
what about this podcast?
This podcast is a fun shot.
Yeah,
that's why we're drinking some good old coffee while we're having some good conversations here, and this is going to be a good way to start because I think we're going places. Next time, if we're lucky, we might not have an ad spot, but maybe 10 times in we might get an ad spot, and this is going to become how we become financial advisor influencers, to Chris's point, financial professional influencers. But we're excited of good things to come, continuing breaking down sound boxes. We're hoping to have a lot of conversations amongst ourselves, conversations with other advisory professionals from all walks of life, and some of our most interesting clients will hopefully join us in the future. But great job, and I'm glad we got you all coming to work. By the way, this podcast was a hack to get the entire team into the office today. Great job.
You need to the entire team, Chris.
Good night, San Diego.